my #1 priority is getting on the fish. I think like it's really important to be on the fish. You know, like you can set up anywhere and like you think like, oh, that swim's free and just go in there because it's free. But if the fish ain't there, it's pointless. So like the first objective is not to rush in and just go and set up anywhere and make sure that you find the fish first. When you do turn up, the best thing is to turn up at around that time, because chances are if they are going to show, it is going to be around that time, isn't it? I mean, on here sometimes it's late morning, like, you know, sort of 9 o'clock time.
It is, Mark.
But like you'll wake up in the morning and like see nothing, you know, all the way through the morning up until sort of 9 o'clock time. Then they'll just spark up. But the thing is, like, you know, like I say, is not to rush in and just set up anywhere until you know which end of the lake the fish are at. Sometimes, like on here, I've been down here 2 nights and I ain't seen a fish left like the next swim. You know, they're all down this end. And like, to me, like, you know, if you set up the other end, you know, you're just wasting time and money being on the bank. You know, you may as well spend it on the fish, you know. So, like, you know, like I say, like, turning up at first light and seeing that, then, you know, maybe you only see, like, 2 or 3 fish show in the morning, but you'll know where they are, because one fish ain't going to be on its own. When you turn up at a lake, you got to think of, like, the fish that's in there, how many fish that's in there, how many... You know, how much bait's been in, how many people have been on, how much pressure does it receive, where the people are, where you're fishing, you know, like where you're thinking of going, his line's going across there, which might cut him off from coming round here or whatever, or the pressure that he's doing might push him up the other end, you know, and like all these things, like the weather, like whether it's going to be warm or colder, or, you know, the trend, whether it's getting warmer. I mean, the fish where they are now, they might not be there in a couple of days if the weather's getting colder. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, all these things, like, you have to put in, you know, the depth of the water, whether it's weedy, whether it's not weedy, on like, sort of what you're thinking of what you're using. Do you know what I mean? You've got to think then, oh, how I'm going to approach it. But, like, all these things you've got to think of first, and then sort of, like, put it all together and do it, like, you know. But you have to think of everything, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, put it all together, because like that ups your percentage of catching. Definitely. And I think that's as near to how I can explain, like, how somebody catches more fish than other people. If you can get to your pond in the week or something, say after work, right, you go work, you know, like on a Tuesday and a Thursday you go down, and then on a Friday night you fish until Sunday. So like on a Tuesday night and a Thursday night you'd walk around the lake and you'd have like a catapult and a bag, you know what I mean, with some boilers in or whatever. But you ain't necessarily going to put them in, because you don't know what, you know, you don't know whether you're going to. But like, you're there and you're seeing what anglers are on, you're finding out what's been out from where and what have you, and you're keeping in touch with that lake. So that when you go down, you've got a perception of roughly, like, sort of what you're expecting when you get there. So that then you can go a little bit more prepared and you can be a little bit more on the ball, like, you know what I mean? And that difference will catch you fish, you know what I mean? A lot of fish as well. I mean, at the minute, they're showing, like, out in the night, like, you know, sort of like 1, 2 o'clock time. And fortunate enough, you can see them on here, because like the lights around the lake. Yeah. So like, to be awake on here at like 1 o'clock in the morning and be ready to get onto fish is an advantage as well. And sometimes it can pay off, like it did for me this week. Like I didn't end up getting here till sort of about 11 o'clock at night, and I had to walk around, and like it weren't until sort of 1 o'clock in the morning that they started to show in front of a couple of swims, and like I got on fish straight away within a couple of hours. Like, if I'd have set up somewhere else, I'd have only just set my bivvy up. You've got to try and get on fish, you know. I mean, even if you're getting the odd liner or something, it tells you that there's something there. If you've done like 24 hours on here and you ain't seen or heard nothing, like, you know, it might be worth just going right up the other end, because there's that many fish in here that if you are on fish, you should know, you get some sort of signs, like, you know, some flat spots in front of you or something. They always give themselves away, don't they, some way or another.
A lot of the really, really good anglers that I know are just so incredibly observant. That's an interesting point, I think, to touch upon. Like, you know, like that. They're always watching the water. For example, Dave Benton, you know, like you're looking out at like a bit of water, like out of here, and you're like, oh, you know, what was that? What was this? What was this? You see what I mean? You always need to be like watching the water, and like, you know, the fish will give the game away.
As a general rule, like in the spring, if it's warm, they'll be in shallow water. If in the autumn time sort of thing, if it's starting to get colder, the deeper water. But like the autumn time is a good time to fish the deepest spots on the lake, because that's the last place it's going to cool down. The surface temperature will go down quicker than it will down there. So like if you use that as a bit of a rule of thumb, like, you know, if it's warmer, then a bit shallower, and then if it's colder, then a bit deeper.
Like, for example, a water like this during the winter, yeah, and even like during the season, because there aren't any snags, you can fine your tackle down. Yeah?
Yeah.
It's almost like you can use those like hook links. But for example, say you're fishing like somewhere like Burfield, you know, up to a snag or in like heavy weed,
yeah,
it's almost like always balance your setup according to the water that you're fishing. So say for example this one, you can get away with like size 10 ESP big T's or something like that, can't you? Like, you know, and like 10-pound hook links, because you can play them out all day long because there's no snags out there. He's had that amount of fish like in one day on that particular thing. As an angler, I'll be like, what you doing, Martin? He was saying I'm using that, with that, with that. So therefore you switch over all three to that particular method, because he's caught 7 fish on it.
And what you do then is like, you know, like you said, what depth do I have it at? I mean, I've got mine at 3 different depths.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
And like, it gives you a little.
And then when I get a bite on one, swap the others over.
Yeah, you can swap. Well, you can. I mean, that's all right if the depth that you're fishing, your lake you're fishing, is consistently deep. It's like I'm fishing one sort of in the gully, and it's 6 foot. So like I've got one like 4 foot.
Have you?
Yeah, I've got a 4 foot one on, and I've had takes on that.
What depth have like most of your takes been on?
Most of my takes have been on like between 2 and 3.